I like the advice you give, not going into it blindly, having a plan of action, knowing what is my goal, what are the outcomes I want, right? It's what we call in instructional design, it's a backward design approach. So instead of
Mm,
starting at the beginning, we start at the end and we see what's our goal, what's our outcome, what is that end of the road that we want, and then we work from the backward. We work backwards. So we do that sometimes in curriculum design, because sometimes we'll start at the beginning where we're like, okay, we have to look at topics, objectives, but then the subject matter experts aren't sure where they want to start, and they start to struggle with it. So I say to my curriculum developers, let's do backwards design and let's start at the end and ask them, what do you want them to accomplish at the end of this course or at the end of this topic? And then they're like, oh, I want them to do this. And we're like, okay, great. Now let's build it from there. And then we'll put the objectives in and we'll put those together. So that's kind of how I look at creative work too, right? Is you have to sometimes do that unconventional approach to it.
when we have companies come to us to get started, Augie, because we always do a handheld onboarding, they often will ask, well, where do we start? And our first question isn't, I was like, that's the wrong question. The first question is, what do you want to create? Right. And if most
Right.
people will say, I'm not quite sure. So here's my tip for anyone who's not sure what kind of video to create. Go find a video you like, right? If you're making and let's call it an ad for your product. Well, go find an ad for some other product. Doesn't have to be in your category. In fact, preferably not, that you like. It could be an ad for pants or a car or a beer or whatever. It doesn't matter. But if there's a style like, oh, start to think about it. I like a witty voice narration in the background, or I want no narration, or I want a person talking at the camera, or I don't want that. Do I want, give some thought, like, what is the video you like? What is the thing that triggered you to positively to buy a product, good, or service?
Right.
Then start building toward that end, right? If you see something that's showing lots and lots of cool CGI, and it's showing, like if you watched any of the recent Apple's coverage, this was the week they announced the Apple iPhone Air and etc. All of their videos were these really cool, like they exploded out what's inside the product, and like lots of really nifty use of, I assume, CGI or AI, etc. Well, that's going to be a lot of work. That's going to take a
Yes.
chunk of time. If on the other hand, you want a video of, a woman walking down the street going into your favorite restaurant, that's pretty easy to recreate. Let's go do that.
Right. Yeah. And see I like that, because that's also where marketing comes in, right? Looking at what are sometimes we call it benchmarking. We look to see where the other similar types of products, like you said, or services, like you said, doesn't even have to be in the same industry, but something where, yeah, it sparks your interest and your attention. I love that. That's great. Because I like vintage stuff. I think that's really neat to kind of go back in time. So who knows? Maybe for my podcast, I can do something like that. So that's neat.
Nice.